Todd's going for wine too.
Let me shut this.
Okay, hey everyone, Mike here with Cruise One Dream Vacations. Hope you're all are doing well. I see many of you got on, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce a couple of people. I have Kathy Brock from Waterways that is joining us, and I also have Todd Nay from AMA headquarters, who's actually going to do our presentation. And I'm going to let Kathy say a little bit about it, and then I'll let her introduce Todd, and he will start the presentation. Kathy, go ahead and unmute yourself. Or I can do it. Let me see if I can do it. There you go.
Yeah, you have to do it.
All right.
Am I there?
Yep, you're here. Go ahead.
Okay. Hello, Travel Club members. It's so good to almost see you. Wait till I can get back up to Big Canoe and that area. It's just so amazing. You guys are so blessed to live in heaven. I have to tell you that. So AMA Waterways is thrilled with this new product. We've got 2 exotics now, of course, Southeast Asia and Africa. And the person responsible for building that entire Africa product is none other than Todd, who have with us today. He has researched this destination. He's selected the hotels. He has built what's going to be an incredible product. And Mike has planned a group. So we're here to share that group info with you today, because if you haven't signed up, I think you better do it, because this is a small ship with only 34 cabins. So this one could get away from you. And I'll roll it over to Todd. Thank you, Todd. I love your hat.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so let me get this going. All right, sorry, we'll just, okay, all right, folks, my name is Todd, and I'm the product manager for AMA Waterways, and the new program we're going to be talking about is called The Secrets of Egypt and the Nile, and it begins in September 2021, and with Mike, we've got a sailing scheduled for the middle of November in 2021. Okay, I just want to give a bit of a layout of where Egypt is in relation to the Northern Africa and the Middle East, and you can see Cairo there on the left-hand side. To the south is Luxor, and where the Nile River flows. We also have an extension to Jordan before the trip, and you can see where that's located. Israel is a post-extension, and in some cases, Dubai is offered as a pre-tour extension. So here's just a close-up view of the map of where Cairo is. You can see at the northern part, it's of Egypt. Cairo, we're going to spend 3 nights in Cairo at the beginning, and then we're going to fly down to Luxor, which is on the Nile River. The Nile itself is a 4,200-mile-long river. It actually originates way down in Uganda, Ethiopia, and the river is so large that it drains into West Africa as well as the Mediterranean. And so we're going to do a 7-night cruise on the Nile, and then we'll head back to Cairo for 1 additional night. All right, so I just want to point out our program starts in Cairo. Cairo is a massive city. You can see the Nile flows through the heart of Cairo. The city itself has about 22 million people. Cairo is an Arabic name, and it means the conqueror. And curiously, in Egypt, weekends are Friday and Saturday, not like Sunday and Monday here in, or Saturday and Sunday. Weekends are Friday and Saturday in Egypt. And coincidentally, a little fun fact for Egypt is that Egypt was the 365-day-a-year calendar originated in Egypt. And people have been living in this part of the world since about 3100 BC. Okay, before we talk about the itinerary, we're going to talk a little bit more about our new ship. It's called the Dahlia. The dahlia is a flower native to Egypt. The ship itself has 34 rooms, 18 regular standard cabins, and then 16 suites. There are 2 restaurants. One's called the Chef's Table, like we have in Europe. And we also have the regular restaurant. There's a pool on the top. There's a bar. There's a, actually, what I'll do is I'll show you the layout. Well, actually, before I do that, I want to tell you about the ship. It's a brand new ship. Technically, there aren't any ships allowed on the Nile. So what we've done is taken a ship and stripped it down to its skeleton or bones, and we've rebuilt it. It's in the shipyard right now in Cairo. It's been there for about 8 months now. And the ship will actually be completed by the end of the year. And then we have about an 8-month waiting period before we decide to launch it onto the Nile. This is just a little, I wanted to show you the layout of the ship. You can see the decks. We have the acacia deck, lotus deck, lily deck, and jasmine deck. And all those plants or flowers are named after, are native to Egypt. And that's where we came up with the name. And again, the Amadalia. You can see on the bottom deck, the acacia deck, these are the smallest rooms, 194 square feet, still large when you put in perspective of other ships, say in Europe or the Mekong, and they're 194 square feet and they come just with windows. As you work your way up on the deck, so you can see the purple section, that's the category C. And those are 230 square foot cabins with French balconies. And then everything above that, the green, the turquoise, the dark blue, and the pink, those are all suites, and they all come with a balcony and French balcony. They come with a balcony and some with a French balcony. The largest suites are 430 square feet, and above the suites, you'll come across the main deck on the Jasmine deck. It's the outdoor lounge. We have a fitness room. We have a massage room. We have a hair and nail salon. The ship will feature an elevator. We have a private chef's table restaurant, which guests will be invited into each night. Of course, we'll have the bar. And kind of fun, while you're sailing, all the meals will always include, on the cruise, local wine, beer, and soft drinks, of course. Local wine for Egypt is actually, most of the wine in Egypt comes from Jordan. That's where all the vineyards are. In the evening, we'll always have nightly entertainment. We'll have a captain's cocktail hour, sip and sail like we do in Europe, which is like a happy hour. There'll be a belly dance show one night, and we have something what's called a Waterways show, which is folk music, cultural heritage of Egypt. And then we have a Galabaya party, which will be a costume party, and everyone will be encouraged to dress up like the locals and attend the party. I've done it before, and it's actually really fun. If you're traveling with a family or friends and stuff, we do have interconnecting rooms with 4 of the cabins. Let's go a little farther. So these are all artist renderings because our boat is still being constructed, but this is the upper deck with the pool. You can see the bar, the lounge in the background. You can see there's lots of canopies. The sun can get really warm. It can get hot in Egypt at certain times of the year. So we try to produce as much shade as possible. We only sail in Egypt from September through December and then January through May. We don't sail in June, July, and August. It's simply too hot there. And normally the weather is very dry. I remember talking to one of the local Egyptologists when I was there last. Her name was Dina. And we were on the Nile and down by Aswan. And I asked Dina, when was the last time it rained? And she looked at me kind of weird, kind of stunned, and basically said, I don't know, maybe 17, 19 years ago. So it doesn't rain very often there. And the most comfortable months to travel in Egypt, I would say, are November, December, January, and February. And here's a picture of the entrance lounge. Again, these are all renderings. This is a picture of the bar where we'll have parties and evening entertainment will take place. This is the restaurant, and One thing about the restaurant in Egypt, we will be able to accommodate all different dietary requirements: vegan, gluten-free, vegetarian. I'm not sure about kosher yet. That's still a TBA on the kosher. Again, meals for dinner will always include local wine, beer, and soft drinks. Here's some renderings of the rooms that we'll have, staterooms and suites that we will have on the Amadalia. The bedding will be 2 twin beds, or it can be converted into 1 king-size bed, or queen-size bed. We also have the suites all have a lounge. You can see the right-hand side, a couch and a chair. On the bottom right-hand side, you can see where the bedding is, and then the lounge. These are on the suites, category C and above. And I should say, category B and above. And I should say all the rooms will have complimentary internet and a television. And of course, air conditioning. So another, just to look at the lounges. All the suites, all 16 of them, will come with a walk-in shower and a bathtub. And again, the food, like I said, you know, we can cater to all tastes. A lot of our food will be brought in from Europe for, you know, just for hygiene purposes and so on. We will feature Western or continental food in the restaurant, as well as local Egyptian food, and which is focusing on more on Mediterranean flavors. The ship itself will have an Egyptian crew, Egyptian managed, but we are going to bring a few cruise managers in, or management company in from our Europe ships to help oversee the whole operations on the boat. So it will be Egyptian crew, but with a little bit of a European touch. You can always expect that the standard, the quality, the presentation in Egypt on our ship will be identical to what we do in Egypt or in Europe. Okay, let's go on to, okay, so basically that is our ship, the Amadalia. And again, a brand new ship, but basically everyone's going to start this program in Cairo for 3 nights. And so what's going to happen is you're going to fly from North America to Cairo. There are nonstop flights from the East Coast, and a lot of flights actually go through Europe too. And so you're going to arrive in Cairo. You're met at the airport. You're assisted through customs and immigration, and then you're taken to the hotel, which you can see in front of us. And this is the Four Seasons Hotel at the residence. And if you look on TripAdvisor, you'll always find it as the #1 rated hotel in Cairo. The hotel itself has 200 rooms, and it's in a location that's about a mile south of the downtown core of Cairo, which is a very chaotic area. And so we selected this hotel just because it's a piece of tranquility in the middle of a very, very large city. And across the street from the park is the massive botanical garden. So it doesn't feel like you're quite in the city, but you are in the city. The rooms we're going to you stay in, they're called the superior category. All the rooms come with complimentary Wi-Fi. All the rooms have a Bose music system, and the rooms are, in the top half level of the ship, or the hotel, and all the rooms come with a partial Nile view. And if you look over to the left on this picture, you'll see the Nile flowing through. So after a day of sightseeing in Cairo, it's actually really nice to come back to the hotel where it has a swimming pool overlooking the Nile. But also there's a small casino in the hotel, and there's also, but depending on the time of the year, 6 to 7 different restaurants. So we don't include, where we include breakfast and lunch in Cairo, we'll never include dinner. We don't include dinner simply because there's too many choices at this hotel to dine at. And you don't have to stay in the hotel. If you want to go out and explore the city more in a different area, you're welcome to do that for dinner, but we know most of our guests will want to stay inside the hotel during the 3 nights in Cairo. Okay, so basically what's going to happen, you're going to arrive in Cairo on day 1. I just also want to mention that you do need a visa for Egypt. You can get it online, and depending on, the visa can range from $25 to $35. They periodically change it, but you can get your visa before you leave to Egypt online, or you can get it on arrival. And then on day 2, after breakfast at the hotel, we're going to head out and start exploring Cairo. And the first place we're going to go to is the Egyptian Museum. And the Egyptian Museum, as the way it stands right now, is it's an old museum. It's been around since 1925, and this houses the King Tut's treasures. King Tut ruled Egypt from around 1300 BC for about 10 years. And they found this mask in the Valley of the Kings of King Tut in 1925. Cairo, or Egypt itself, is building a much larger museum. It's called the Grand Museum, or the Great Museum of Egypt. It was supposed to be completed in 2019. That didn't happen. So then they said 2020, and that's this year, and that's not happening. So now they're saying 2021, the new museum will finally be open. No matter what, we'll either visit the old museum or the new museum, and both will house the same beautiful treasures of Egypt. So on day 2, we've gone to the museum. We're going to have a tour of the Great Museum or the Grand Museum, depending on which one. And then we're going to head down to a marketplace, and it's called the Khan Hakili Market. And this market, or bazaar, it's been around since the 13th century. And what's really cool, we're going to have lunch in the marketplace, and we'll have some time for shopping. And what's really cool about this market is, well, coffee is infamous in Egypt. And there's a coffee house in the market here that opened up in 1760. And I don't know if Starbucks modeled after this coffee house, but this coffee house has been around, I guess, for almost 400 years or 300 years. And so the coffee houses originated in Cairo. And the restaurant we're going to have lunch in, it's a restaurant that's been around since the 17th century also. And it's a famous restaurant. It was named after a famous author called, sometimes I don't get the names right, but Naguib Mahfouz, who's a famous Egyptian author. He also won a Nobel Peace Prize back in 1988, and he died at the age of 94 in 2006. So we'll have it's considered one of the best restaurants in Cairo, and we'll have local food. No beer or wine at lunch. Technically, in this part of Egypt, or this part of Cairo, alcohol can't be served. Again, it's for religious purposes. Then after that, the market, we've been out for the day. We're going to head back to the hotel where you'll have a time to relax and, dine with your new friends. We will have a welcome reception at the hotel that night with tapas, cocktails, and then you can all go out and have dinner on your own at the hotel. There's a picture of the typical market area. Okay, on day 3, we're going to go see the pyramids and some other highlights of Cairo. I have to admit, like I've said to people, that as a product developer person, I've been to a lot of countries, maybe 85 or 86. And Egypt, I don't want to say that, but in terms of all the countries that I've been to, I would have to say Egypt is in the top 3. Other places I think were equally as fascinating were Antarctica and Myanmar or Burma. And kind of like on the same par as Egypt and the pyramids, the statues in Easter Island. It gave me that same wow feeling inside my body the first time I saw the pyramids. And surprisingly with the pyramids, they were the tallest buildings in the world up until the 14th century. And they were built about 2500 BC. And each pyramid took anywhere from 10 to 20 years to build. They are tombs. Some people ask, can you go inside the pyramid? Yes, you can. It's limited, but the vast majority of people do not go inside the pyramids because to get in, you've got to crawl through a narrow passageway. And you can get in maybe to see the tomb, but to get out, you've also got to move in backwards. And a lot of people just can't do that. It's an extra fee to do that. And so it's equally amazing just to see the pyramids from the outside. Some people also ask about riding camels in this part of the world. We don't really encourage it, but you can do it. Camels aren't even native to Cairo, or to Egypt. But they're here now, and if you want to ride a camel, you can. It costs anywhere from $10 to $15. It takes about 15 minutes, and you get a picture of the camel owner and the camel. So it's there if you want to do it. Each pyramid in Cairo or in this part of in Giza, consists of about 2.5 million stones. Also around the pyramids, you're going to see the Sphinx. Again, the Sphinx is the body of a lion, and it'll be a head of the pharaoh. There's sphinxes all around Egypt, but this is the largest one. And they constructed this back around 2500 BC. And took about 3 years to carve the Sphinx. And what makes it even more cool is that it's carved out of one stone, one massive piece of rock. After we've gone to the pyramids and over to the Sphinx and actually a place called the Solar Boat, we will stop for lunch at the Mena House. The Mena House lunch overlooks the pyramids. It's an old hunting lodge built back in 1860s, and that time Europeans used to come down and hunt hippos and crocodiles and stuff that were in the mouth of the Nile River. You don't find them in this part of the world anymore, and this hunting lodge has now turned into a 5-star hotel with incredible food, and the setting is absolutely magnificent to have lunch. Then we'll head back to the hotel, and you have an evening free at the hotel. So you've been in Cairo for 3 nights, and the next morning we're going to fly to Luxor. Luxor, let's just jump ahead. Luxor, here we go. It's about an hour flight south of Cairo, and this is where you're going to board the ship, the Almadallah. And Luxor itself is known as the world's greatest outdoor museum. Luxor itself is an Arabic word meaning fortress. And on arrival, we'll fly into Luxor, we'll get on board the ship, and then we'll spend the afternoon visiting Luxor Temple. And this temple was built around 1400 BC. Ramses II ordered it to be built. Some people ask about dress code when you visit the temples. There's no dress code for visiting temples, just a good hat, lots of sunblock, shorts and a t-shirt, or slacks and a shirt, nothing. You don't need to dress up for this. The only time in Egypt that where you do have to be careful what you wear is when we're on our tour of Cairo, we do visit one mosque. And when you visit a mosque, you do have to wear long pants to go inside. The other thing a lot of people ask, well, actually, let me show you in a second here. Here's a picture of the Luxor Temple at night. And some people say, well, can we go see a light, sound and light show at a temple, like in Luxor Temple? And yes, you can. It usually costs anywhere from $25 to $40 to go see a light show. We don't include it simply for the fact that to go to the light show, you've got to leave at 5 o'clock. You won't get back till 8 or 9 o'clock. So you actually miss dinner on the ship. And so for those that don't mind missing dinner or having it at a decent hour, then you can, by all means, visit the temple and see the sound and light show. I encourage it. It's actually pretty cool to see. And those that do go, they can have dinner when they get back, a late dinner, or they can have a snack before they go. A lot of people do ask, well, when we tour the temples, how long are the walking tours of the temples? And they can range anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half. One temple is 2 hours. And they say, well, is there seating available in the temples as we walk around? There are no benches in the temples. So when you do the walking tours, it's basically standing and walking with your Egyptologist the whole time. Okay, another temple that we are going to visit is the Temple of Queen. Well, I always get this name wrong, Hatshepsut, but my friend in Cairo just says Queen Hatshepsut. And she's was a famous queen. She reigned Egypt for about 20 years, and we'll visit her tomb. Our son took over. Queen Hatshepsut, she was considered one of the strongest women ever to rule Egypt. And if you see a lot of her statues today or carvings in Egypt, you'll see that she has a beard or she has large muscles. It's because she had the strength of a man, and that's how the Egyptians looked at her. And it was amazing, like in Egypt, where if we get excited, a woman president in the United States, Egypt had women pharaohs or leaders 3,000 years ago. So they were way ahead of their time. One of the exclusive things that we're going to do is visit the Queen Nefertari tomb in Luxor. Very, very few people get to go into this tomb, and mostly they don't go in simply because it's too expensive. The cost is like $130 per person just to go inside this tomb. It is actually considered one of the most colorful tombs you'll find in Egypt. And Queen Nefertari was the first wife of Pharaoh King Ramses, or Ramses II. Ramses had a lot of wives, and he also had a lot of children. I think last count was about 146 children. Queen Nefertari herself, she was well educated, of course, rare in those days, and she lived to, they say, they can't figure it out quietly, but it's between 40 and 50 years old, which in today's time would be like 110, 115 years old. So she lived a great life, and she actually married King Ramses when she was 13. Ramses was 15. Here's another picture of the Queen Nefertari. The other thing I wanted to mention to you while we're on these tombs is that from when you arrive in Cairo right to the last day, the groups are split into 3 groups, your size, 20 people per Egyptologist. So we have 1 Egyptologist that travels with a group for 20 people. So if there's 60 people, there's 3 Egyptologists. You also have a tour director. So Egyptologists, they're well educated. They go to university, they get their degree in Egyptology, and they'll be the one that leads you through the tours of the tombs, pyramids, and so on like that. And then we also have a tour director that oversees, just make sure everything's all organized. You're handheld from the day you arrive till the day you leave. There's nothing you need to worry about. Another cool temple here is the Temple of Horus that we'll visit in Edfu, built about 230 BC. And it was founded by a French archaeologist way back in 1860. And it's probably considered one of the best preserved tombs anywhere in the world. And this tomb, actually, when they found it, it was underneath a sand dune. So it just tells you how long it had been abandoned for. It's just a little photo of the Nile River. And I wanted to point out a few facts, like on the Nile River, you have the East Bank and the West Bank. All the temples are built on the West Bank. All the temples are built on the East Bank, and all the tombs are on the West Bank. And the reason the tombs are on the West Bank is because the sun sets in the west. The end of the day, the end of life. So that's where you'll find the tombs all on the West Bank. Here's another picture of the Nile, again, about 4,300 miles long, longest river in the world. And, if it wasn't for the Nile, we wouldn't have Egypt or the cradle of civilization. Okay, one of the cool things that we're going to do that very few people do is we're going to visit a Nubian village. Nubians they're like the Native Americans in the US. They were the first settlers in this area, or the First Nations in Canada. And the Nubians have been around since the birth of the cradle of civilization. They have always lived in southern Egypt and northern Sudan. And they're known for their archery, and they're known for their colorful homes. And here's a picture of one of the homes. It's on an island called Hessa in the middle of the Nile. Their homes tell the story of their family, and that's pretty much, you can see all the different drawings and artifacts and stuff, and it's telling the story of their family. So we are going to visit the Nubian village. Here's just a local picture of one of the Nubians. We will visit the market, and what we do that nobody else does is when we visit the market, we're actually going to, when we visit the village, we're going to have lunch in the village too. You won't have it on the ship. We're going to have a local lunch with the villagers on Hessa Island. Pretty cool. So you get a real local flavor of the region. All right, one of the things that we are going to do that you really can't find anywhere else is we do offer this optional trip to a place called Abu Simbel. Abu Simbel is one of the most spectacular temples, actually the most spectacular anything I've seen in my life. Abu Simbel is about 200 miles south of Aswan, and the only way to get there is by plane. And it's sold as an optional trip with on the Waterways. Actually, nobody really includes it on any cruises. The Abu Simbel was built by King Ramses II, again for Queen Nefertari, and it was built about 1300 BC. And what makes this kind of cool is that here at the Abu Simbel, back in up to the 1950s, this temple was built in the bottom of a valley, 600 feet below where it stands today. And they built the Aswan Dam in the late 50s, the early 60s, and it created a lake called Lake Nasser. And if they didn't move this temple, it would have been covered by water. So they took it apart piece by piece by piece, moves it up the hill 600 feet, and here we have Abu Simbel. This is something that probably everyone should see in their lifetime. So because there's only a plane that flies to Abu Simbel, there's limited seats that are available to go see it. And so what we've done to ensure availability is you can purchase Abu Simbel in advance before you head to Egypt. Most companies allow you to book it when you're on the ship, but they don't guarantee availability. You know, it's kind of like first come, first serve. And so for those that really want to go, you can pre-book it with Alma Waterways and with Mike, and then you're assured that you will get to go see Abu Simbel when you get to Egypt. The cost to see Abu Simbel is $325. And that's the round trip flights and the tour. The whole trip itself takes a whole morning, so you're down there for about 4 hours. There's an inside of Abu Simbel. All right, another temple we're going to see along the river. We're going to see lots. I'm just pointing out a few for you. Is Komombo. And if you look hard enough in the middle, you can see there's two entrances. And Komombo was built for two gods, Sobek and Horus. Sobek was a god of crocodiles, and Horus was a falcon god. So they had two entrances into the temple. Because Sobek was the crocodile, god, what is amazing is when you visit this temple is you'll find a number of mummified crocodiles in the temple. So it's fascinating to see. I mean, there's still crocodiles in the Nile today, but at this time, back in 2000 BC, they were all over the place along with hippos. Another temple we'll visit is Karnak Temple, and it's considered the largest temple in the world. It covers about 250 square acres. It's about 2,000 years old. Another thing I mentioned earlier about the walking tours, you take an hour to an hour and a half. Karnak, being the largest, takes 2 hours. They don't have benches in the temple. A lot of the temples are not wheelchair accessible. Some do, but it's difficult if you have big mobility problems. You might not be able to see a lot of the temples. If you have trouble standing for an hour and a half, 2 hours, we will have collapsible chairs that those lightweight chairs you can bring along and rest for 5 minutes and then continue on. Another temple to see that we'll visit is the Temple of Hathor. It's considered the best preserved temple in all of Egypt. And what makes this cool, if you look down to the center of this, you'll see it looks like a gravel, something. That was actually a swimming pool. And this temple had swimming pools, wading pools back in its time. Of course, you can't do that now. The pools are filled with rock. But I don't know, some of these Egyptians live the lifestyle of the Hollywood Hills or something where everyone has a pool. So they started a lot of things that we carry on today. All right, so we've just spent 7 nights on the Nile River, and we're going to fly back to Cairo. Like I said, it takes an hour to get back. We fly in the morning back to Cairo. And just to take us, a break from temples. I mean, if you've been to Europe, after day 5 or 6, maybe you don't want to walk into another church. You've seen them all, or a plaza and something. And say by day 6 in Egypt, some of you will say, well, I've seen all the temples. What are we going to do now? So what we're going to do is make it a little different, and we're going to fly back to Cairo, and we're going to visit the presidential palace, probably one of the most palatial palaces found anywhere in the world. The palace itself is built in 1860. It's considered to have one of the greatest art and clock collections found anywhere in the world. So even when presidents, prime ministers, whatever, come to visit Egypt, they stay in this palace, and the president actually lives in the palace. We won't see him. But what makes us a little different is very few people, again, get to go into the palace. It's exclusive. And we're actually going to have lunch in the palace. And we'll call it the farewell lunch because this is the second to last day of the trip. And we don't want to have a farewell dinner that night simply because most of the flights back to North America leave at 3, 4, 5, 6 in the morning. And so most people will want to relax and get packed and ready to go. So we'll make this our farewell lunch. One thing I do have to point out, there's no drinking allowed in the palace, so wine and beer won't be served at the farewell lunch. But it's the location and the setting that is absolutely spectacular. Is it a picture of inside the temple or the palace? After lunch, we've had our farewell lunch. We are actually going to go visit Old Cairo. It's a mix of Christian and Roman architecture. It's dated back to about the 10th century, and this part of Cairo now is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So that's our trip into Egypt. 3 nights in Cairo, 7-night cruise, and then 1 night in Cairo at the end. A lot of people do ask about medication and so on. There's no required medication like malaria pills or anything to take for Egypt, but you should be up to date with all your inoculations, vaccinations, and so on like that. Now, this is your trip to Egypt. There are a couple of options to do before or after the trip. And the first one is Jordan. And there's a 4-night pre-Egypt extension where you would fly into Amman. Here's Amman. It's actually a very historic city. It's been around for about 7,000 years. And it's a city of about 4 million people. And the hotel we're going to stay at is the St. Regis Amman. And you can see a picture of the room. It's one of the best hotels, top 3 hotels in Amman. And so we'll arrive in Amman. We'll meet you at the airport. We'll take you to the hotel. There'll be a small group. You'll have your guide for the whole time. Again, you're handheld the whole way through. And so we'll arrive the first night. The second day, we're going to do a tour of Old Amman. And then we're going to head up to Jerash. It's a city, it was a Roman city. You can see at one time, you can see the old Roman Colosseum. This area Jerash is about 40 miles north of Amman. You can see the Greco-Roman architecture. And these ruins have been around. When the city was established back around the 2nd century. And then from Amman, we're going to take about a 5-hour drive south. We'll stop along the way, and we're going to spend 2 nights in Petra. And that's the hotel we're going to stay at is called the Old Village Resort. And this is a hotel. What makes it cool, it's a 4-star hotel. It's not a 5-star hotel, but we selected this property simply because it helps the local community. The hotel itself is built out of an old stone city. The local residents built this hotel. They run the hotel. It's not an international chain or anything. This hotel is the livelihood of the local residents around Petra, so we thought we would support them with this. And it, you know, this is a hot climate here at certain times of the year, and sleeping in a rock hotel, kind of tunnels and stuff, it's pretty cool. So we're going to stay at the Old Village Resort. And we're going to spend a little more than half a day up in Petra to see the old ruins. A lot of you'll recognize this site simply because it was in the later Raiders of the Lost Ark. Petra's been around since the 3rd century, and it wasn't discovered again. It was abandoned. It survived the dry climate because the residents at the time built these massive aqua filters to bring water down from the mountains, so the city thrived. Eventually, drought happened and no water came, and they had to abandon the site, and it was discovered again in 1812 by a Swiss explorer, and it became a UNESCO World Heritage Site back in 1985. So that's Petra. To get to the ruins here, like you see right here, the temple, it's about a half-a-mile walk. A lot of people will walk, but if you can't walk that far, no problem. We'll have donkeys with carts that'll bring the people up to, your guests up to the ruins of Petra. This is, again, something that it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience to visit this, the ruins here at Petra. And you can see in front of you, this was all carved out of one big, massive cliff. That's the 4 nights in Jordan. The other option is to do 4 nights in Israel, or you can do Jordan and Israel. And with Israel, it's 4 nights in Jerusalem. So we're going to fly from Cairo to Tel Aviv. The flight itself takes about 50 minutes, 50. And we're going to fly into Tel Aviv. We're going to tour Tel Aviv, have lunch there, and then we're going to head north up or east into Jerusalem. Jerusalem itself is about a 50-minute drive from downtown Tel Aviv. And what makes our extension to Jerusalem a little different is that what we're doing is basically getting a taste of everything there. So we'll touch on Bethlehem, the tomb of King David, but we'll also visit some of the Jewish highlights, and we'll also visit the local market in Jerusalem, where the locals go to buy their fresh fruits, vegetables, and stuff, and we'll actually have lunch down in the local market. This is the hotel we're going to stay at in Jerusalem. It's called the Waldorf Astoria. It's a 5-star hotel. Wonderful property, great location, great reviews. And also when we're in Jerusalem, we're going to do a trip to Masada. And Masada is actually a Hebrew root. It means a strong foundation. And this was basically, it was a getaway for the Romans at one time, and then the Israelites after they took over. And so it's at the top of a mountain. The only way to get up there to Masada, to tour it, is by cable car. And if you look on the bottom, middle, left-hand side, you can see sort of where the cable car actually goes up to see the top of Masada. This was actually where the first Jewish-Roman war took place. And what I wanted you to point out on Masada, look to the far left-hand side, and you can see that water down there. That water is actually the Dead Sea, and the Dead Sea is known for its salt content, and it's also known to be the lowest point or elevation in the world. And so we're going to head down to the Dead Sea. The climate of the Dead Sea is very warm because it's so low in elevation. And when we're down there, everyone will have the opportunity, if they want, to float in the Dead Sea. That's why it's so famous. The salt content is so high, you can't sink. It's impossible to sink in the Dead Sea. We'll have lunch on the Dead Sea. And if, you know, those that want to, you know, buy the Dead Sea salts or mud or whatever for facials and stuff, of course, you can do that there also. Okay, Mike, do you want to take over this part here?
There we go. So, all right. So, Tom, thank you so much. And there is a chat pod. I don't know if you guys know about it in Zoom. It's down on the lower part of your screen. If you have any specific questions, you can ask them there. We don't have that many on, so I can theoretically unmute everyone. And if anybody has any questions for Todd, you can do that. Allow me to go over what we have. It doesn't seem like a phenomenal trip, everyone. I mean, this is something that I just can't wait for 2021. But the dates are November 12th through the 23rd. That is the standard tour that we're doing, Secrets of Egypt and the Nile. That's the 11 nights that Todd spoke about, the 3 nights pre, the 7-night cruise, and then the 1 night after. We do have special group pricing right now starting at $55.49, and that is for a Riverview cabin, and just as a window. There are other cabins available. Let me point out there's only 34 cabins, Tom? Yeah, 34 cabins.
34.
Yep, and we are at right now at 15 cabins already sold. So half of the ship is already sold out, let's say. So if this is something that's been on your bucket list, it is certainly one of those bucket list type items. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. I would certainly think about it and give me a call as soon as you can, or email me. Like I said, I still have some Riverview cabins left. I still have a few French balcony and also standard balcony that have the step out, as well as the French balcony still available. I can go into the pricing of all of that when you either email or call. As you see, the bonus travel club offer to the right, the price of $55.49 already includes the $250 discount. If you go up to a standard French balcony, you can figure about adding about $800 to that price per person. But also as an added incentive, I had on here the last time we did the original presentation, I had some certificates for an additional 5% discount. When I did all of my reservations today, I finalized all of them with the group department. I found out that I actually had 3 more certificates than I thought I had. So I do have an extra 5% discount for 3 other couples, first come, first serve, that will be taken directly off of that price. So if you look at the slide, Todd went into the pre-stay and the post-stay. The pre-stay is Jordan and Petra, and the post-stay is in Israel, including Jerusalem and Masada and all. And you see the pricing there per person to add that on. If any of you are wondering, I am going on this particular cruise and will escort this journey. So, and I will be doing the pre-stay in Jordan. I thought that to be very interesting. I will not be doing the 4-night Jerusalem, at least not at this point. It's just a little bit too long for me to be gone with my business and all. So anyway, that is that in a nutshell per se. If you have any questions, like I say, I do have a flyer that I can send out to you. I also have a day-by-day itinerary for including the pre and the post. So if you want a little bit more detail, I can send you that as well. I don't see anything in the chat. So I'm going to go into the participants and I'm going to unmute everybody. Everybody don't try to talk at once, but if anybody has a question, I will wait about 30 seconds for anybody to ask. So go ahead and ask a question if you have it. I have recorded this presentation. So if you have some friends that weren't able to make it this evening and you want to send it to them, I can do that as well this time, okay? So does anybody have any questions?
No. Is he in Egypt?
Anybody? If there's
Covered it
not,
all, my God.
yeah, anybody? So if there are no questions, I will mute everybody again and let Todd kind of give a final, or Kathy, are you there? Wait, let me unmute you. Well, Lord, let me figure out how to do this again. There you are, unmute. All right, Kathy, there you go.
Okay. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make this trip, but I know Diane is coming with you. So
Oh,
super
well,
excited. I still kick myself because I missed Portugal with y'all,
yeah.
because I know the fun group, and this product is so far over the top. If you have Egypt on your list, this is definitely the way
Yeah.
to do it.
It's
Be part of
definitely
the
a 5-star. It's definitely a 5-star trip for sure. You saw all the hotels that we're staying in, and of course the ship's going to be brand new, so we're going to be the envy of the Nile when we're on it for sure. So it's just something that I have had on my bucket list for many years, and I waited for AMA to do their great job on what they always do. So I'm for sure going. Right before I give it back to Todd, Diane, did you ever get online? I don't know
She
if
kept
Diane.
trying, and I kept trying to accept her, but it didn't come through when I
Yeah.
was doing the presentation.
Okay.
Can you
Mike,
hear me on
do
the
you want to say?
phone?
Yeah, hold on.
Hi,
Diane,
Diane.
are you there?
I'm on the phone. Can you hear me on the
Okay.
phone?
Yeah, we can hear you. Well, I'm glad you made it in. I know you were having
Can
some
you hear me on the phone?
technical difficulties, so.
I'm still having them. Even my IT guy can't get it to work, so something's wrong. So it's
Yeah.
not your fault. It's the new virtual world we live in. So
Yeah.
we'll figure it out. Somebody will get it working.
Yeah.
So I only got to hear the end, but I love this trip.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody that's even remotely thinking of going to Egypt has to really consider this, because there's nothing like it. And for any of those out there, I don't know who all is in your crowd tonight, your big canoe people, or those people that I've traveled with in Portugal. Maybe I will, as Kathy said, get to join you. It is on my wish list. It's number one on my husband. So hopefully that will happen. But if there's any questions, like you had mentioned, Mike, of course, between Kathy, myself, yourself, and Todd, who's definitely the expert, we certainly will take care of them. I did learn one thing. I learned November was like one of the best times the year to go. So this is a prime time as well, right? So it's a prime time on a brand new ship. It should be beautiful.
Is there anything you guys want to say about, the travel waiver?
I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, Diane, tell us about the travel waiver. I know it's on everybody's mind about what happens if we can't travel or whatever. Tell us about what AMA is doing as far as offering a no risk availability as far as going on this trip.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have this program called Travel Waiver Plus that's in place right now. Of course, it was spawned from the recent incidents that we're dealing with in the world, so just to give you that peace of mind. And so with that particular program, it's a very reasonable fee. It's $175, correct, Mike?
Correct. If they don't purchase your insurance. If they purchase your insurance, it's a little less, I believe. So
yeah, I think it's like 85 or something.
Yeah, but they can add it to any insurance.
80, yeah.
Yeah. So.
Right, exactly. So if they purchase our protection, then it's 80. Otherwise, it's 175. But what it allows you is the ability to have the peace of mind that if you should have to cancel at the last minute, it does cover the penalty costs in the form of an FCC, which is called a future cruise credit. So you really don't have that worry about losing anything, in the long run. We certainly hope we're going to be operating. That's the expectation. We all hope that everything will be going as planned. But just in case that's on your mind, that it's something that gives you the peace of mind, and that's one less thing to worry about, and it's a very nominal cost for such a high amount of protection. In other words, your money can be used toward anything in the future. And we certainly hope if you were planning to go with us to Egypt, you would be planning to go with us and one of our European cruises as well.
Well, very good. Well, okay, I think we'll go ahead and wind down. It's getting out to be at the hour mark here. Todd, any last comments on anything for us?
Yeah, I'd just say that this is, again, a once-in-a-lifetime trip. If you've always dreamt about it, now's the opportunity to see it. It's rare for these things to come aboard with these exclusive visits, brand new ship. you know, unique itineraries. What we've done different is everyone has itineraries that are a dime a dozen, but this one is completely more exploratory, dig into the local culture, and you just see things that you didn't expect to see. If that makes sense.
Yeah, sure does. So, all right. Well, with that said, I want to thank all of my travel club members who joined us again this evening for our encore presentation. We had another, about 15 or so, you know, that have joined us again today. So, and if any friends or any of the travel club, you don't have to be a member of the travel club or be a resident of Big Canoe or anything like that to join us. So all of your friends, your family, anybody that's interested is welcome to join us. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off for now. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Kathy, again, and Diane. And again, friends, join us. We'll be having another webinar toward the end of the month on the 27th of May, and we'll be talking about the Great Lakes area and the Mississippi River. So hope you guys can join us then. I'll be sending out another invitation. Till then, you guys stay safe, and we'll talk soon.